welcome to this week's DIY video. This week we are talking about furniture painting basics. We are literally going right back to the beginning to show you the very foundations to painting furniture. So if you are looking at getting into this as a hobby, this is a great video for you. Or if you have a couple projects that you're thinking, hey, I might try to tackle those myself, again, definitely watch this video. Now, last week's video, we talked about proper prep, and I can't emphasize enough that that is the most important step. So if you haven't watched last week's video yet, I encourage you to go back, watch last week's video where you can see how we prepped this piece for painting, and it definitely makes a huge difference. So we're not going to talk about prep today, so watch that video. Moving forward from here, we are going to talk about furniture painting. So this would be almost like you would call your furniture painting 101 class. So we are going to be using, first and foremost, our Fusion Mineral Paint in this color called Coal Black. It is a really deep, dark black color. One of the things I want to talk about is using good quality furniture paint when painting your furniture. There are a lot of people who think paint is paint. I can take a wall paint, put it on my furniture, no one's going to notice the difference. From a distance, you're right, it's probably going to be hard to tell the difference. However, wall paint is not formulated for durability on day-to-day use like furniture is. The trim on your doorways and baseboards is actually made to be more durable, which is why usually it's shiny and glossy to give you that durability. But a flat wall paint, you know, years later, I can go and take a rag, and I have a wall behind me, and I can wipe that, and actual paint will come off onto my rag. It is not meant to be durable enough for the day-to-day use that you would have in, say, an entry table, something like this, or chairs, or your dining room table, or your kitchen cupboard doors. So if you are going to take the time necessary to paint your furniture, I would definitely invest in good quality paint. Good quality paint doesn't mean it has to be expensive. Now, we're in Canada, and we retail a pint of this paint for $23.99 Canadian. So don't ask me what that is American off the top of my head. They're probably like $18, $17, $18, I would imagine. Now, this pint has enough paint in it to give you approximately 75 square feet worth of coverage. Let me tell you, that's a lot of pieces you can paint. You can do large armoires. We've painted with one of these, a long dresser, a tall dresser, and a couple bedside tables with 2 coats each. So a little does go a long way. And our Fusion Mineral Paint is also self-leveling. So you see very little to no brush strokes with this product. And the other great thing is it has 0 VOCs, which is your volatile organic compounds. Those are the smells that you do not want to have to smell when you're painting. They're dangerous to you, so there's no VOCs, and there's a built-in top coat. So again, I don't have to wax this. Again, last week's video talked about wanting to paint over wax furniture. You don't have to worry about removing the wax if you ever want to change the color. So if you're going to live with this in the coal black for a while, and then down the way you're like, okay, I want to go from coal black, now I want to paint it white, you could totally do that. You would just clean your piece and you are good to go. So again, definitely use good quality paint. Our Fusion Mineral Paint is mineral pigmented, but it also is an acrylic resin base, and that's what gives it the durability. So I just want to talk about that. And then the next thing I want to touch on is your tools, what you use to apply the paint. Again, what you use can make the difference between something looking good and not so good. So we definitely recommend investing in a good quality paintbrush. Now, many a great piece of furniture has been painted with a cheap little chip brush, and they can still turn out great. So I don't want to discourage you from that, but you don't want to be using your paintbrushes that you get from the dollar store. They don't hold the paint, they don't level very well. I've tried them, they don't work. So again, there are a couple really good brands of paintbrushes. For our Fusion Mineral Paint, we recommend a synthetic paintbrush versus a natural bristle brush. And you can use, like, one of the best ones on the market is the Stahlmeister. They're again sold at a lot of retailers. You can probably get them online, so look that up. It's Stahlmeister, which is Staalmeester. They come in a lot of different shapes, so this is the flat one. You've got your Klingon brushes, again, very similar ends to these. I love the Klingon brush as well. And then Fusion has its own brush, and that's this 2-inch angled synthetic paintbrush. I use this paintbrush a lot. I love this paintbrush. I love the fact that it's on an angle and it helps so that I can get into all these little nooks and crannies and everything. So I think today I will use this, but definitely use a better quality paintbrush. You will definitely see the difference. And the other thing is you can paint your furniture, but you can also use a microfiber roller. Now, this one's been used before, and I just wanted to use this one again because you can actually use them a couple of times. You don't have to just use it once, throw it out, and use another one. So when you're done with it, you just rinse it out really well, let it dry, and you're good to go. And if you're in the middle of coats, so we would probably put 2 coats on this, I can just cover this with a little baggie or a piece of cellophane with the paint still on it, and then when I open it up, I can get to start painting again. So you don't have to waste paint by rinsing it off in between coats. So there's some options that way. So we're painting this hall table. This is a Bombay style piece. It is probably mahogany, but it almost looks like it's faux. What we did in the last video is we cleaned it with TSP, we gave it a scuff sanding, and now we cleaned it again just with water and a cloth to remove the sanding dust, and we are good to go. And then what I'm going to do is roll the top of the surface, is the flat areas. There's a little bit of dust on there, and then I'm going to use my brush for all the other areas. I think I will do the top last. The other thing is you want to put enough paint on your brush to let your brush do the job. I find there are really 2 things that can kind of go wrong at this stage. People either don't put enough paint on their brush, or they really overwork it. You are trying to stretch this paint as far as possible, making it so thin that it won't self-level, okay? The other option is you've put it on so thick that it's globby. So first of all, don't put a lot of pressure on your brush. You don't have to push really hard. You just are gently applying the paint to the surface, and then you don't need a thick layer. I would actually side on a little bit thinner than too thick. That gives you very minimal brush strokes. And this paint, the Fusion Mineral Paint, has amazing coverage. I could get away with 1 coat coverage with this paint. Having said that, for durability, I almost always apply 2 coats. Okay, so now I'm just going to open this drawer a little bit. Again, we don't even have to remove the drawer. You can simply paint the drawer. We're just doing the front. We don't have to do inside any of these pieces. But you do want to get all of the edges. So I'm going to paint the very top edge here. And if you're afraid that you might be a little sloppy or you might get paint, this is black on the inside, you can tape it off, but again, in this case, it's already black on the inside, and I'm going to just try to be a little careful. So that is one of the drawers. So this okay, right here we're going to talk about painting the dowels, or the legs. I guess they're not really dowels. Painting spindles, painting the legs, painting the backs of chairs, any of those types of, like I said, spindles are a little bit of a tedious thing. A lot of us don't enjoy that part, but again, it's not complicated. You just want to make sure you just try to cover all the surfaces, obviously. So up at the top here, I just went around. I can do that here at the bottom as well. I just want to coat and get in all the different areas, and I tend to try not to flick your paintbrush back and forth because it will splatter, but you definitely want to just try to go all the way around, straight up and down with that. I should really have that closer to me. Again, as much as I can, I want long, even pressure and that pressure is not very hard. It's called letting your paintbrush do the work. My dad actually taught me that at a fairly young age, not just with regards to painting, but even sawing. I remember learning how to saw a piece of wood, and I felt like I had to push down on the blade so hard to try to get it through faster. And he's like, don't do that, let the saw do its job. That's the same sort of thing with painting. Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing this first coat of paint, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we just finished applying the first coat of paint to the base of this hall table. I want to just point out to you that you may like it just like this. Keeping the top stained and painting just the base of your table. That is a really on-trend style right now, but on the top there's a couple little nicks and scratches, so which is why we're going to paint the top as well. Now the difference between rolling and brushing is rolling will give you a little bit more of a stippled look as opposed to the brushes using a paintbrush giving you more of a, sometimes almost like you would see some slight brush strokes. You can also roll this little lip that is around the edge. And when I'm done getting pretty well the paint on the top, I want to go over it all from one end directly to the other without stopping in between, applying very little pressure, but it's nice because then you don't have any stops and starts on your roller. I want to point out just a couple little things so that if this happens to you, you're not overly concerned. I'm not sure if it's going to show up super well on the camera actually. It's not as, there were certain areas, maybe over in here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera.
Yeah, you can.
You can see that it's not really the brush stroke so much that you're seeing, but you're seeing through to the substrate there. Let it dry and you're going to do a second coat. We are going to let this dry. It is best if this paint dries for say 6 to 8 hours. Sometimes you can push that and paint it again in 2 to 3 hours. I like waiting overnight. So we're at around 4:30 here right now. We're gonna let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow we're gonna come back, do our second coat, and this piece will be finished. So we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, and we're back. Wearing different clothes, so this is a different day. So this is definitely dry and has just one coat of paint on it. Now, again, one coat of paint gives you really good coverage with the Fusion Mineral Paint, but I always advise that you do at least 2 coats, again, just for extra durability, and then just in case there's any areas that the paint was a little bit thinner, or maybe you even missed a little area, that definitely the second coat helps with that. Okay, so I think we'll pause the camera because again, this is going to be a little bit tedious for you, but we just wanted to show you how easy it is. I'm going to finish painting the base of this, and then we'll come back as we do the second coat on the top. So we'll see you in a second. Okay, so we are finished doing the base, a second coat. Now we're going to do the top. So that, I would say, is it for now. So we are going to show you how to lightly distress the piece as well, but that has to be dry. So with our Fusion Mineral Paint, because it is so durable, if you do plan to distress your piece, you are going to want to do that sooner than later. So I would let it dry maybe only like an hour, 2 hours, and then you can even wet distress. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to sand with a little bit of sandpaper too. So what we've done is we've let the paint dry. Actually, I don't even know if it's been an hour. The paint does dry fairly quickly. And if it is your goal to distress a piece that's been painted with Fusion Mineral Paint, it is definitely best if you distress sooner than later. One of the advantages of chalk paint is that it's easy to distress. It's easy to distress because it doesn't adhere as well as the Fusion Mineral Paint. and the longer you let your Fusion mineral paint dry, the more difficult it is to come off. So that is definitely an advantage because you don't want your paint to easily scratch off, but it means you definitely need more elbow grease in order to distress a piece. So this piece looked pretty great without distressing, but we wanted to show you how to distress should you want to. When it comes to distressing, the logical areas you want to distress are where they would get natural wear and tear. You don't want your distressing to look so contrived, like, oh, let's just put a scratch here and let's just rub some off here. It would be areas that, like this edge, you know, that people might walk by. It could be edges like here where your feet might kick it. You want to distress on the areas that are more obvious. So I left this front section a little bit. And I'm using sandpaper and a damp cloth. Actually, Jackie, do you want to bring the camera down for this?
Sure.
Okay, so let's do this corner. See, we did over here already. So I'm just taking the sandpaper and I'm using it again on a block. It's just easier to work. And again, I'm just removing some of the finish on these edges. And I have a damp cloth, just dampen with water. Now watch what I do here. I'm just gonna rub it along this edge. I don't want every little piece of paint to come off that edge. I want it to be like it is, a little bit here, not here, a little bit here, not here. We just go all the way around. This area, as I get closer to the corners or the front, I want it to be a little bit heavier distressed. This corner here, you'll definitely want to remove a little bit more paint because again, that's something that would probably get hit. I did the edge of this drawer, so I don't really need to do that again. I did a little bit on here, so you can see there. And let's go back to this side. So again, we might have a little bit in this area. So I'm just gonna see how you can just remove some of that with a little bit of sandpaper. Then down here, we kind of did a little bit down here already. I'm not going to really distress much of the middle here because it probably wouldn't get hit very often, but this drawer is going to be open and closed, so let's get that top little area slightly. And again, the edges just look really nice. And again, you can heavily distress. You can go really crazy and do it. If you want to really distress a piece, always go with the wood grain and only in that one direction. So don't go a little bit distressed like this and a little bit like this, because like that, it just never happens. I'm not even going to distress the top smooth surface. I'm going to leave it just like that. I think less is more when it comes to distressing. Now, if you're distressing and you feel like, oh my goodness, I took too much paint off, you can always paint over it. That's the advantage. So if I felt like this is like, oh, this is too much, just paint over it again. So it's really just play with it. As an artist, you can be as creative as you want to be. So we're going to let this piece finish drying for a little bit, and then we're going to stage it and we'll take an after photo for you guys to see. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, definitely let us know and I'll try to answer those in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell so that you get future notifications on all videos that pertain to DIY, crafting, and furniture refinishing. Talk to you soon.